Legendary basketball coach and now ESPN analyst, and that's Seth Greenberg. Seth, great to see you. How are you?
This is big, live and in person. This isn't over the phone. This is this is huge for me. Whip radio is big. I understand that. And you, come on, Zach, come on. It doesn't get any better than this.
And that's Jim Nantz of CBS.
Well, it's amazing, that, here you are in college. You look what you're doing at your age. It's pretty phenomenal. I started working for my campus radio station my sophomore year, but I didn't have the form that you do now.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
It's time for the main event with Zach Gelb and Mike Zahn on WHIP.
Let's do it.
Let's go!
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of WHIP Radio here in Philadelphia, you're listening to the main event on this dreary November 5th, 2015, taking up until noon Eastern time, where the Temple Sports Hour comes your way. 2 minutes past 11 o'clock. Zach Gelb here with you, flying solo today. And we usually don't do guests at the top of the show, but we welcome in now a radio legend in Philadelphia, and that's Tony Bruno, who's now with podcast1.com. Does a really good podcast, and Tony joins us on the show right now. Tony Bruno, thanks for a few minutes. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Zach. I forgot to mention in Temple alum as well. You got all that in there, and the reason that the studio you're in is not as overly ostentatious is because I haven't been sending any money to the Alumni Association to fix it up for you, man, because I'm broke right now.
Well, our equipment's not that great here, and but you can't bash the station. I'm sitting in a little small room, but I could be in a lot of worse places. I've seen some professional studios that look a lot worse than this.
I've worked in professional studios that are a lot worse than that. So no, you're doing great, man. It's awesome what you've been able to do, and I know people always ask me 100 years later how I got started in radio, and the fact, when I was at Temple, we didn't have a radio station. Obviously the radio station at Temple is an over-the-air station which plays music, but with radio and the way you're able to work so hard and get all the great guests that you do and build your career and start your career this way is an amazing, amazing accomplishment, man.
Well, I appreciate that a lot, and it means a lot coming from you. So what have you been up to? I know you're doing the podcast right now. How has that been going? I saw some pictures about it last night.
It's been going great. In fact, we keep expanding, and we just announced last night that we're going to start doing the podcast live in front of an audience. Not a sports bar scene that you see a lot of times, but we're going to take it down to the Comedy Sports Club right on Stanton Street across from the great Helium Comedy Club. So we're going to start that on the night before Thanksgiving, and we're going to be there every Wednesday night to do it live, and then, of course, pre-tape it, and then it gets put up on Podcast One on Thursday mornings all over the world. So that's going to be fun. We're going to have live guests. We had a couple of live guests pop in last night. We've been doing it from our apartment. You talk about studios. We actually use our apartment as a studio. And so it's being videotaped. We put it on YouTube. So it's now available all over the world. Excuse not to hear the show, even though it's only on one day a week. And then podcasting, obviously, is huge because it's on-demand radio. You want to hear the show, you can listen to it anytime you want. So that's the new direction I'm going in after all the years in terrestrial radio. And to me, it's like kick-starting my career again. Not that I want to do this forever, but for the next couple of years, I think this is a good direction, and then we'll see how it goes. But podcasting is blowing up right now.
That's fantastic. And when you left WIP, you said that radio just wasn't bringing you any joy and satisfaction anymore. How does the podcast bring you that joy and satisfaction?
Well, because on the podcast, you get to do what you want. We don't have executives standing over, program directors, guys in offices having meetings on what we should talk about tomorrow. And when we decide we want to talk about something other than the Eagles, we get yelled at and say, no, just talk about the Eagles. And listen, I understand. I'm not criticizing the people who work hard to make radio stations go and try to stay in the ratings war. I don't have to worry about that stuff. I go in, I do what I want. I got Miss Robin, my producer, who works hard. We get the guests we want. We talk about what we want. We can mix in pop culture. We don't have 9-minute commercial breaks. We do one commercial break an hour, but we don't even break. We just incorporate it into the commercial. So it's basically 2 hours of uninterrupted content, and we get to have fun, and we do whatever we want. So I know a lot of people want that eventually to control their own destinies, but, after 40-plus years in radio, I'm at the point where I really want to control my own destiny. Not that I can't work for anybody. I do have bosses, but when your bosses say, hey, we like what you do, just do what you do, and everything will be fine. So that's pretty much the bottom line. Is I don't have to work 7 days a week, and I do this, and I get to have fun, laugh a lot. The audience loves it, and everybody goes home happy.
I'm from New York, but when I came here to Philadelphia, I would listen to you at 97.5 The Fanatic with Harry Mays. I love that show, and then I really did enjoy the show you did with Josh Innes. That's a new PM Drive show. I know that you're still probably curious to know how that show's going, so I'm just wondering, with Josh Innes, Hollis Thomas, and Spike Eskin, have you listened to that show, and what are your thoughts on it?
I haven't realized, even before I worked at WIP or 97.5, I'm not a guy who turns on the radio in the morning to listen to sports talk radios to hear what's going on. I'm up late at night. I'm watching the games. I'm checking the internet. So I'm one of those guys, and I've always been this way, Zach. I don't want to listen to other people's opinions, not because I don't respect them. I don't want to listen to other people's opinions because a lot of times other people's opinions help many of us determine our own opinions. So I like to go in when I do my shows and not know what anybody else is talking about, so that when I see a game, I'm able to conclude what I think went on, in my opinion, of having done this a long time. So I haven't really listened to much radio. I get in my car and music for the most part, but I respect the people out there working hard, and I especially respect the young people working hard, moving their way up the ladders in our industry. But I've always wanted to be a guy who has his own opinion and not base it on what I heard somebody screaming on the radio, and yet scream, yeah, I agree, that's what I agree with. I mean, it may be the same situation. I may agree with most of the people, because how many different opinions can you have on Good Kelly? But I like to form my own opinions and have my own fun when I do my thing.
We're talking to Tony Bruno. And, Tony, this Temple football team, they've been very special. They've been a fantastic story this year, and they had a great performance up against Notre Dame. They lost the game by 4 points, and it was a week that I've never expected for Temple football. The Eagles were on a bye, so it came at perfect timing, and everyone just bought into what this Temple team was selling. College game day and all that stuff was a really fun event to be at. Students were there as early as 3:45 in the morning, and then they made it all the way through to the night game that was nationally televised on ABC. You've been following Temple football for a long time. You were a student here at this university. Just what's your thoughts on the way that this city fully embraced Temple football and what is a pro sports town?
Well, I couldn't be more proud. I mean, I go back to Wayne Harden, who was a coach when I was at Temple, and Steve Joachim. So we're talking about early 70s, and then Temple had a great team, and Steve Joachim was the quarterback. It was 9-2, and people were talking about Temple, and it was a different time back then. We didn't have sports talk radio. We didn't have all the outlets and the social media, and certainly on campus, the buzz with the young students now all having access to radio, to their phones, and going back and forth. The one thing I noticed, because my girlfriend, Miss Robin's daughter, is a senior at Temple, and being on campus a lot, is that there's no doubt, Temple's slogging along the last couple of years, and as they get better, most of the students who aren't diehard football fans, they have their own lives. They're not really paying close attention to Temple athletics, especially the football team. But when things start rolling, and I'm not going to call these fans front runners, because that's what happens on a college campus. Just like teams change every year, when students leave and you have to bring a new class in and you have to keep the thing on the rails, as Matt Rule has done brilliantly, is to be able to bring in new talent to keep the thing going and not see one good year and then the program crash and burn. So to me, this was an amazing run. It started with the Penn State game this year, when I think this team, because they didn't just barely beat Penn State, they actually punished Penn State with all the sacks and Christian Hackenberg and the domination. I think that game, more than any other game, made this team believe that, we're good not only to compete against the Penn States of the world now, but to beat them and to dominate them. So you fast forward to the Notre Dame week, and with the Eagles bye and the students all jacked up and everybody wanting to be there, it became more than a football game, Zach. It became an event. It became one of those, I've got to go. It's like a big concert comes to town, and the entire student body's like, we got to get tickets. That's the way it was with the students that I was around last week. They wanted to be at the game. They wanted to be a part of it. And when it looked like Temple had a shot to win it, when they were up late, I mean, you can feel the electricity in the air. So to me, that was one of the greatest weeks in college football history in this town. Because we're not a college football town, but to see Temple be that school that makes the step up and get national love and then show up and play as well as they did against Notre Dame, chance to win the game. Because on my Twitter feed all last week, I had all these Notre Dame fans. I'm not a Notre Dame hater. I don't care one way or the other. So it's not like I'm a Notre Dame hater. Therefore, I will root against Notre Dame no matter who they play. I'm rooting for Temple, my school. So when all these people say, well, Temple shouldn't even be on there, they're going to lose 44-10. So I got all these Pac-12 people who listened to me out in L.A. giving me a hard time because I was giving up love to Temple, they're like, this game shouldn't even be on national TV. Well, you know what? After all is said and done, the fact that Notre Dame played Temple, a nationally ranked team, and it was a great game, actually helped Notre Dame, I think, move up. Because if Temple had a horrible year, and that game's on the schedule anyway, added to the schedule. They didn't flex like NBC can do on Sunday Night Football. That game was on the schedule. If Temple had not been good, if they had been 1-5, Notre Dame wins. Notre Dame would not be number 5 in the first coaches and the first BCS poll. I keep calling it BCS, even though it'll always be the BCS to me until they have a full playoff. But in the first college poll of the rankings of the top 10 teams that are going to be, the top 25 because Temple's 22. In that, what do they call that poll now? The one that determines who plays in the national championship playoff.
So they still have the AP and the coaches poll. I think they call it the college football playoff rankings because that's the first time they came out this week, as you know.
Correct. And Temple's 22, and Notre Dame's number 5, where they're on the bubble of the top 4 playoff teams. So tell me this, and not because we're Temple guys and rooting for the Owls, but tell me that if Temple was not good and they play that game and they beat Temple, by 30 points, would they be number 5? No, I think Temple helped Notre Dame move up to number 5 because they were now considered a quality opponent on a schedule where at the beginning of the year, you're looking at Penn State and Notre Dame, and you're saying, hey, you know what, Temple's got 2 big games on national TV, and hopefully, they'll compete. They're not just competing anymore. So to me, I think Notre Dame was helped just as much as Temple was as by being on national television and two top teams playing one another in a game that was the highest-rated college football game of the weekend.
And what's going to keep Temple in every game is their defense, led by Tyler Medikevich and guys like Matt Ioannidis, and Tavon Young is going to play this week. That's what Coach Fran Brown told us yesterday as he was suffering that injury in his knee, a little bit of swelling there. But people ask me this all the time, Tony. They go, do you prepare a call if Temple's going to win? Because I do the play-by-play, as you know. And I just said, no, I don't prepare a call, but I do think about what I'm going to say because it's just natural human instinct when you go to a school like this to get fired up and try to envision that scenario. And for the Penn State game, I was just sitting there in the third quarter, and the first thing that popped into my head was 74 no more. And then when I was at halftime, and then eventually when they took the lead in that football game, I'm just thinking, what embodies this team? And the first thought that came to mind was the movie Rocky. And I think this Temple football team that was almost dropped 10 years ago, Tony, is better than the Rocky story. It's funny to see those parallels between Rocky and this year's Temple football team.
You're absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. And again, I know it sounds like we're Temple guys and we're just beating the Temple drum. But, my big concern is Matt Rule and whether or not he'll leave now. And the good thing about Temple is that they will always as my old buddy, the late, great Bino Cook, when I worked at ESPN and did a lot of college football with Chris Fowler and Bino Cook and all the guys that you saw at the game day set and Coach Corso, all these guys that you know and have talked to, the old line that Bino used to look is material. They don't have the material. Well, Notre Dame has the material, and now Temple has the material. And not just the material, but they have the coaching that enables these kids to believe that they're good enough because they are good enough to compete. It's all about mental approach, too. And then Temple not only has good enough players to go out there and compete with the Notre Dames and the Penn States of the world, they have the material to go on there and make this city proud. No matter what happens, this city's already proud. Notre Dame, Temple's not going to win the national championship, and that's the difference in college football. The Eagles, when they lose, the world goes crazy because it's all about the Super Bowl. It's not about making the playoffs and winning a wild card game. For Temple, it's about finishing in the top 25, being in a bowl game, and then having people say, wow, how about Temple football? It's no longer just, they're a team you put on your schedule when you want a cakewalk win. Temple's here, and hopefully they're here to stay. And I hope Matt Rule stays, and if he doesn't, I hope whoever comes in here will be able to keep the thing going and bring in the kids. And the kids are the most important thing because when kids see Temple getting talent, and when kids talk about, let's go play at Temple, because they play at Lincoln Financial Field in a big-time stadium, I think recruiting is going to become markedly easier for Temple in the future.
I think Matt's going to stay around for a little bit longer. He has so much pride for this university. And, hey, you can't fault him if he's going to go take that job because he's been here for 9 years and only the head coach for 3 years. But he's certainly going to be a hot coaching commodity. And I would have to say, if you got to make a comparison, you hope you get a Shaka Smart run out of him. Right, Tony?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Now, again, the bowl games after the top 4 bowl games don't really matter, but For a school like Temple, it matters. You know, if they're in a bowl, which they will be, will the students and alumni show up? Will they, will they play in a stadium where they can get people there so that the representation looks good when Temple's there? Those are the questions that remain unanswered. And unfortunately, in the bowls, except for the 4 big ones, and you see a lot of these Christmas week bowls, New Year's week bowls, there's a lot of empty stadiums. And I hope that when Temple gets picked for whatever bowl they're in, that the fans show up and they represent, and that will also help, I believe, in the future of keeping this program moving in the upward direction.
Here, he said he wants to bring a championship trophy to Temple University. And what he meant by that is not a national championship. Right. He meant a conference championship. And this Temple team, they're on pace to be representing the East in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, either going up against Memphis, who Temple does play. You have Navy that's still in the mix, who's undefeated in the conference. And then as well as Houston, which is a really good football team. And even when P.J. Walker came in here, he was on this show, and he said he wanted to bring that championship back home. It's just really something that I almost have to pinch myself, Tony. And you're right. Sometimes we do sound like we're Temple homers, but here's the fact. Those guys had a vision, and now they're on pace to be coming in and completing that vision and making it reality. And who would have thought that when 2-3 years ago, you have 1/16 of the people that were there on Saturday night watching Temple go up 21-0 against UConn, and then they blew the lead, and Yohan Smallwood has an interception, takes it to the house, and Temple lose 28-21.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Zach, and that's the maturation progress of a team that was bad 3 years ago, got a little bit better, and then now a lot of the upperclassmen are showing the way. As you mentioned, Tyler Matakevich is just absolutely one of the best linebackers in college football. It's not that he's just the best linebacker, and I think it's arguably in the entire conference in the AAC. He's one of the best linebackers in America. So his name is out there now. Pro scouts are looking at him. I don't know what the guys, I don't know what the Bell Typers of the world and those guys are saying about Tyler's performance, but there's no way you can't watch this kid play and think that he's a guy that's going to be playing on Sundays in the National Football League.
But what would you like to see out of the offense? So this Temple team is going to be in that situation of a conference championship game and have a chance to win it.
Wow. I mean, they have so many guys. I mean, obviously the quarterback and running back do an amazing job. I mean, that's the focus. The fact that they play together, the fact that these guys know each other and they came together to Temple from up in North Jersey. To me, that's the biggest part is the offense's maturation. And because let's be honest, I mean, the defense is great on this. The Temple defense is great. The offense has always been will the offense be able to stay in the game? And the offense is beyond staying in the game. The second half proves that the domination that they've had, 147-39. They've outscored their opponents in the second half this year. So this isn't just a team that goes out there and tries to hold a team down so they can sneak out a field goal victory at the end. This is a team that can beat both sides of the football. So to me, I mean, I look at Temple's all different all parts of their offense, whether it's the running game, the passing game. When the passing game has to make a big play, it seems that it's happening this year. That's the amazing thing. When they need a long play downfield, they're getting that long play downfield, and those are the things we haven't seen over the last few years with Temple.
A few more with Tony Bruno, who joins us right now. And Tony, there's a big matchup in the NFC East, or should I say NFC Least, this weekend between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I want to take you, though, to a report by Howard Eskin. And Sam Bradford denied this. He said, hey, my contract must have been lost in the mail. But Howard said that before the year, the Eagles offered Sam Bradford a 4-year, $72 million contract. What are you hearing about that report?
I'm not hearing the same thing you are. I mean, I don't have any inside sources right now. I mean, when I was doing the national stuff out on the West Coast, and I worked with Jay Glazer and those guys, I would always get information from those guys who were the best at doing this. I've known Howard for 35 years, so I don't know who his source is. But the fact that Bradford would say, I don't know where it is, it's lost in the mail. So I don't know who to believe. And I don't really believe, it's just in my opinion, without any knowledge, inside knowledge, I can't see the Eagles offering Sam Bradford a long-term contract before he actually took a snap at the beginning of the year. It just doesn't make any sense. They did the same thing with Nick Foles last year. They didn't have to offer him a long-term deal. They let him play out the season. And in the case of Bradford, I think they'd be smart to do the same thing. So Bradford's reaction to me tells the story that there's no way they offered him a contract, because if they did, he would have said something different other than it must have been lost in the mail. So I'm not saying Howard's got bad sources. I'm just saying that I would be surprised if the Eagles did offer him a long-term contract beyond 1 year. I think you got to let. That's why he's playing, and that's why all these people who want Mark Sanchez and want Sam Bradford realize that Chip Kelly's got to go with Sam Bradford. People wanted Chip to trade and go get Colin Kaepernick the other day on the trade deadline. And if he did that, people would really be going crazy and saying, well, he really doesn't like Sam Bradford. So he would basically be conceding the fact that he made a bad decision in trading Nick Foles for Sam Bradford if he wanted Colin Kaepernick, a guy whose head has lost its space on it. Could he be saved somewhere else? Possibly. But you can't risk in a bad division, which is still up for grabs, bringing in a quarterback who doesn't know this offense, who doesn't have any confidence, and now you're going to bring him in here and throw him out there against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. So that one made no sense to me. But that's just what we do as fans in weeks. We'll be leading up to a game, and we try to figure out what can we talk about. So I don't buy Sam Bradford's been offered a long-term deal. It would make no sense.
Now, Bradford and the Eagles, they could just part ways at the end of the year because he's on his final year of his contract. Chip has been very stubborn, and he's had such a commitment to Sam Bradford, and he doesn't criticize him much. Do you see a situation at the end of the year that Chip does move on from Sam Bradford? Do you think that he's going to bring him back next year?
It all depends on how it plays out. I mean, Sam Bradford wins games and throws a couple of interceptions, which really don't cost them the games. That one stretch there where he threw 5 interceptions in 2 weeks in the end zone, in the red zone, and people are going crazy. Well, if you lose those games, I get it. Listen, I don't like interceptions either. But when you look at Washington, when their quarterback Kirk Cousins throws interceptions, they lose the game. In fact, in their 3 wins, he did not. In their 4 wins now, no 3 wins, he did not throw an interception. In their 4 losses, he threw interceptions in every game, and those interceptions wound up hurting them. So while Bradford's throwing interceptions, if the interceptions are costing you football games, then I say, you know what, sit this guy down. Bottom line is the Eagles are scoring enough points. They dropped 23. They dropped 39 on the Saints. Should have dropped 50 on them. The Giant game, they dominated defensively, but they still scored 27. So to me, I'm not looking at – I don't like to micromanage quarterbacks. Do I think Sam Bradford's playing great? No. But I don't think Sam Bradford is playing awful because he really has very little running game. His offensive line is makeshift, and he's still standing in there and making some throws. He's got guys. So it's a team collapse to me. Well, I don't want to say collapse. To me, Bradford's just a part of what's wrong with his team. One guy makes a mistake on the offensive line. It's a penalty. It's a holding. You go back 10 yards. Now you're putting the quarterback in a second and 15, and then they're facing third down. So each mistake that individual players make, as you know in football, can really cost you momentum, can cost you a drive, can cost you score. So it's always on the quarterback. He throws that interception instead of getting 7. You turn the ball over. Yes, everybody's going to be angry. But you got to look at all the mistakes that this team makes, and whether you blame coaching or not, it's up to the individual players on the field not to jump offside and not to hold. So everybody wants to blame 2 guys, and they're the 2 most important guys, Chip Kelly and Sam Bradford. But to get to at the end of the question, I think you wait to see what happens at the end of the year. I mean, everybody wants to make decisions based on one good game or one bad game. And you got Sam Bradford for the season, and the fact that the guy is still upright halfway through the season, to me, is a major accomplishment considering the hits. And so that first fallacy, well, as soon as he takes his first hit, he's going to be done for the year, has been wiped out. And I hope he doesn't get hurt. But Dallas is going to come after him on Sunday night, and it's going to be a fun game to watch. And if they lose to Dallas, with Matt Castle and company, then you'll see that the city will go crazy again next week because this division is so bad. Yet even after losing twice to Dallas, they somehow remarkably will still be in it.
We're talking to Tony Bruno, wrapping up with him. Zach Gelb here with you, WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. And Tony, I just don't envision a scenario, even though I'm not the biggest Eagles supporter this year, and I haven't liked a lot of way things have panned out for the Birds, and I've been against a lot of these Chip Kelly moves, just the way this defense is playing, I just don't see a way, because I don't see the Cowboys scoring more than 14 points. You have to imagine this Eagles offense can at least put up 14 points. That's why I just don't see a way the Eagles lose this game this week. I know it's on the road, and they've already lost to Dallas once this year, but I just think this is playing into their advantage this weekend going up against the Cowboys on Sunday night.
I totally agree. I mean, they got Greg Hardy now, who they didn't have, and they didn't have much of a pass rush. I mean, he was playing them, yet they still lost 20-10 because of mistakes and the fact that Sam Bradford in week 2 didn't look very good at all. And everybody was jacked because of the way they played against the Falcons and lost that game, and they come on and they lose to Dallas at home, and that hurts. But you're right. I mean, Dallas on the road is a better football team than Dallas at home. Dallas played a little bit better against Seattle, but Seattle's offense looked awful too. So, we always talk about Russell Wilson, how great he is. That offense in Seattle is and they got Marshawn Lynch. And so, to me, it's all about running the football. If the Eagles can run the football, Sam Bradford becomes a better quarterback. And so you can say that about any quarterback in the league except Tom Brady. Because when Tom Brady's team can't run the football, he runs the football for them and finds a way to win.
As a Patriot fan, I can tell you that I don't think there's a better quarterback in the league from 4th and inches or 4th and 1 than Tom Brady, QB sneak in the football. But last one for you, Tony, before we let you run. I just want to get it back to Chip Kelly. I look at this team this year, and there's not one win on that Eagles schedule, whether it's the Giants, the Jets, or the Saints, that really gets me all amped up and gets me behind this football team. And there's been a lot of messes on this team, and I think it does fall on the coach and general manager, which we all know is Chip Kelly, with the lack of depth at the offensive line, the poor quarterback play, the poor wide receiving play. But Jason Whitlock was on with Colin Cowherd the other day, and he made a bold prediction. He said that Chip Kelly is going to go back to college at the end of this year and be the head coach of Miami. I want to look into the future one more time for me during this interview. If you had to place a percentage of Chip going back to college at the end of this year, what would that number be?
Well, to me, right now, it would be highly against it. Depends on how the season pans out. I mean, if this team crashes and burns, and there's like the pitchforks are out, and the flaming torches are making their way toward the Eagles' offices at Lincoln Financial Field at the NovaCare complex, there's a possibility. But I'll say this, and I love Jason Whitlock, and I know him very well. There ain't no way he's taking the University of Miami. If he's going back to college, it will not be the University of Miami job. There's no way that's a major job anymore, with all due respect to that program's history. There's no way Chip Kelly goes to Miami if he goes anywhere else. He's going to go to a USC. He's going to go to a big-time program, Pac-12, because they know him out there, and he knows that conference. But I don't think he's going back to college. And again, it's all predicated on how this team finishes up the season. But my guess, there's no way he's going back. I don't buy that he's going back to college and he's only doing this for some NFL experience. I don't buy that at all.
Tony, this was a lot of fun. We appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. Just real quickly before we let you run, tell my audience that always supports Temple Guys where they can find you on the podcast world.
Well, thank you. You can look at my website. It's the easiest way to get there at TonyBrunoShow.com. TonyBrunoShow.com. It links to the podcast. It links to Twitter, email, all the other stuff that we're doing, videos that we post from the shows and the guests. So TonyBrunoShow.com is your one-stop shop for all things Temple University's own Tony Bruno Show.
You're the best, Tony. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Zach.